Hi, my name is Shane. Thanks for watching today. I have rescued a Ludwig Standard kit, and it's mostly in gold Strata. Check it out. So when I say rescued, I mean that the drums weren't really in horrible shape, but if they would have been left untouched for much longer, they probably would have gone that way. I was actually given the floor tom and the snare drum by a fellow band director. They had just been sitting in a back room, for years and years, unused. So he gave those to me. They didn't have any bottom heads, either one of them. That's kind of common in 70s era drums, that the bottom tom heads are missing. But the bottom snare head was missing on this, and also the snare throw-off. So that was kind of weird. So once I got those and realized that they could be saved, I went about trying to find more pieces for the kit. I found the 12-inch tom on eBay, paid like $280 for that. The floor tom is a 16, by the way. And I just could not find a gold Strata bass drum. However, on Craigslist, I found a blue bass drum, and that's a 20. Paid $125. It was in really bad shape. No rims. The lugs were, kind of okay, some of them. The tom mount was kind of way gone. So I brought everything home and started cleaning. The lugs were mostly all corroded, but there was no rust. So I hit those with WD-40 and aluminum foil. Most of everything cleaned up pretty well. The bass drums, some of them, just weren't savable. They're not really shiny, so I just put those on the bottom. No problem there. And also, I'm desperately seeking a gold Strata bass drum. Also, the other parts, I could take a 13-inch mounted, 14-inch floor. So if any of that stuff pops up on, any of your local Craigslists or, used stores, anything. If anybody finds any gold Strata drums, definitely contact me. My email is down in the link below, and I will consider buying, anything with this finish. So now I've got one drum dot on all the drums, which is actually my preferred muffling method these days. I should also mention there are Ludwig coated ambassadors on the top. I've actually got the classic fit on the 12 and 16 because they're they're a little bigger. They've swelled it a little bit, and the wrap, so those actually fit a little better. Also on the bottom, I have clear ambassadors, classic fit on the toms, but the snare was in pretty good shape, so I don't have the classic fit on there, but the Remo snare side ambassador on the bottom. On the kick, I have a Power Stroke P3 coated and just a regular ebony ambassador on the front. Mics are Shure SM57 on the snare. I have the Earthworks SR25 overhead, and that picks up the toms. The Shure Beta 52 inside the kick, and the MXL V67 on the front head. What happens when drums sit for long periods of time with no rims on them is that the bearing edges can get really bad because they get set on the floor or they're exposed to the elements. So if I could go back in time and advise everyone in the 70s to keep those bottom rims on, I would, because that happens to a lot of drums. They get moisture in them, they swell up. And I really wanted to have all these bearing edges recut, and I would have done that at Columbus Percussion. And I still might do that, but this is coronavirus year, and those services are not easy to come by. So I just sanded them down. So they're smooth, there's no burrs on them, but the bottom bass drum isn't exactly flat. The bottom of the floor tom isn't exactly flat. Same thing with the front of the bass drum. It's smooth but not flat. But everything sounds pretty good. I might, get those edges cut in the future, but for now I'm going to leave it like it is. The big thing with the Ludwig Standards is that, legend has it, they were looking to create a budget kit, but it didn't make sense to, redo the shells. So they used their top-of-the-line shells from the 60s and 70s and just used cheaper hardware. So I replaced all the rims. They were, really flimsy, and the rims were kind of rusted, so top and bottom rims all around. On the bass drum, I actually went with a metal rim. I've never done that before, but I figured, metal rims on everything else, so I would see how it looks, and I'm really happy with that. They're actually really sturdy. All new tension rods, and I got all this stuff from Drum Factory Direct. Big thanks to those guys. Shipped them right to my house, no problems. The snare drum actually is the prize in this kit. It was strange. I looked at the bottom and it didn't appear that there were actually snare beds cut. So if you don't know what that means, right around where the snare wires attach, it's shallower so that the snare wires sit, flush with the rest of the head or the bottom rim. But I just didn't feel it. Running my thumb along, you can usually feel it on modern drums where there's a dip, and I didn't. So I thought maybe there was something wrong with this drum. Then when I set it on a flat surface, I realized that there actually is a snare bed, but it's huge. It starts, almost all the way over to the side of the drum, and it's a gradual taper from the side, and then it tapers back. So the snare bed is a full third of the snare. So I didn't know actually how that would sound. I got some heads on it, and it sounds great. The Ludwig Jazz Fest snare drum, which is really sought after from this era, apparently has this same shell. So with new hardware, I'm guessing this sounds a lot like the Ludwig Jazz Fest snare, and I love it. The toms sound great. They're kind of hard to tune because of the bearing edges, so I'm not going to really mess with those in this video. I'm going to kind of leave them where they are, but I'll retune the snare to a lot of different settings and let you hear how that sounds. The standard Ludwig, the P85 throw-off, not my favorite one, but that's what fits, so that's what I got. I rescued the butt plate, but that's no big deal. Ludwig Standard lugs. They kind of do look a little cheap, and the swivel nut that comes out of them is really long, and it kind of, it's not extremely stable, but I got, the springs in there. I got cotton. Once you tune the drum and there's tension on it, they hold, but it looks they look odd. So, some might be tempted to replace all these lugs, with the standard Ludwig lugs from that era. However, that would probably cost several $100s, so I'm going to leave these. They polished up great, and, I think it looks good overall. I'll show you some close-ups of the kit, and let's get some playing done. So I actually have the internal muffler still in the snare drum. I have them for the 12 and the 16, but I took them out. I'm not a huge fan of internal muffling. I know it's, period correct, and a lot of guys like to leave them in, but it, kind of messes with the feel of the head. So I'm much more into, dampening the top of the head. On the snare, however, when you tune it really low, you can crank up that internal muffler and get that really low kind of disco funk sound. So here that is. So there it is, my Ludwig Standards in 3/4 gold Strata and 1/4 blue Strata. If you guys can pick up one of these kits, it's well worth it, especially the snare drum. They pop up all the time on eBay, Reverb, all those sites, kind of like a poor man's jazz fest. You heard it's really versatile. Works in a bunch of different tunings. It does choke, from time to time, but if you got some experience, you can mess with the snare wires, the bottom head, and get a great sound out of it. I can't say enough about this kit. It's really cool. When I first started playing, I never really wanted any weird raps like this, but, my taste has definitely changed, and these weird, funky retro raps have definitely grown on me. So once again, I'm Shane. Thanks for hanging out today. Look for this kit in some of my future cover videos. Check out the rest of the site. Subscribe to all the social media. And as always, take care.